for all of you who are right into the what was it? Home Alone. Home Alone. My goodness, what a start to the show that ends the year. Hello, Phil.
Hello, I'm Mr. Darrell. How are you doing?
Well, if you'd asked me that like 15 minutes ago, I'd be like, yeah, I'm really chill. We've got everything lined up. Everything's going to work. And then, fadoof, it wouldn't be a show to the end of the year without a good blue screen of death, 3 reboots, and everything 1 minute before live. Ugh. Yeah, exactly. But look, welcome to the 365 Message Center show where we help you plan for change, prevent or fix, stay informed, and we loop in friends when there's a need. So welcome, Phil. Welcome for and thank you for filling in, Phil, for Daniel.
Yep, poor old Mr. Glenn is sick right now, so thanks for the invite. It's a strange way to come into the show, but yeah, appreciate it. It's good to be
What
here.
is there ever any kind of normal thing about the show and the way that we do things?
No, not that I know of.
Right, there was a slightly longer pause than I'm comfortable with, Phil. All right, let's get on with it because people have been waiting, and we've got some news to talk about. Our first message is Q View in Microsoft Teams Bookings app, MC305098. I can't admit that I use the Bookings app at all. In fact, I think the first time I really potentially was going to use it was when we all rushed into lockdown and we're trying to find a way for our queue up and allow people to get some time with us to help fix issues. Bill, have you use the Bookings app at all? Have you come across it much?
I've used it on a few scenarios of things where people needed to book up for appointments for things with things like HR and things like this, where people had to get information and things like that. No, I find this one's quite interesting because this particular list option is only in Teams, which
Hmm.
seems a bit strange, but
Hmm. Yeah, I think like the benefit of the Bookings app is that it looks into your calendar. It makes that the any times that you have available that people on the outside can book that time with you. And we see other services like that, like Calendly, that expose that sort of feature. But what's been added here is a new view, as you say, and a way of managing that from within Teams where if you have a list of bookings, you can manage that queue and join your meetings from that queue. So here, who's my next appointment? Okay, I've got a 5 minute gap. I'll take a quick drink, come back, and hit join. And for schedulers, people in that role where they see all their team members, they get to see all the queues and see what's coming. A couple of other things there too, Phil, which look quite interesting. Being able to send email reminders, and in the US only at this stage, US and Canada, sending SMS reminders. So it's interesting that they're talking about this new queue view, but these other features that are coming out at the same time have kind of been attached to this announcement, and I think they're just as important.
sounds like it. Reminders for especially for anything that's to do with appointments is always useful, because otherwise it's just wasted time and things like that people could have been actually at an appointment if someone misses it. So having those options is really useful.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and often some of these things are at the last minute, much like our start to the show. Oh, I'm sorry, I won't be able to make that appointment. Yeah, please excuse me, and you can get 15 or 25 minutes back of your time. Um, Enabling the staff to be able to self serve on a busy day by reassigning appointments to themselves to help balance the load. So that, there's a pool of. Have I still got my microphone? I just don't trust this computer this morning. A pool of appointments that you can help. In fact, that kind of goes together, doesn't it? Imagine someone's just had a cancellation or two, and you can grab something from the queue and then help out take the load. So that could work out nicely.
Yep. If it's definitely more than one person on the service and they're
Hmm.
looking for things and they can handle things, it makes it certainly a lot more flexible.
Yeah. I didn't realize that it could also handle up to 100 staff members' calendars. So there's clearly a good number of organizations that are using this, even just at a consultancy level, to engage with people and schedule time. Hmm. But yeah, so that's a new view that's going to be rolling out in mid January. Expect to be completed late January. It'd be interesting to hear from people who use the Bookings app if this is going to be something useful to your team. Are you using it on a small time scale where you're using it to expose your own calendar, or are you coordinating greater efforts for your consultancy practice and would really find this quite useful to manage a team of consultants? Very good. Okay, next message. Now I forget which order is what because it was such a mess as we started the show. Oh, that's right. Create videos on Office Mobile MC 305 100. The Office Mobile app, I use it a lot. I didn't think I would. I thought, okay, meh, it's just like a collection of the same 4 or 5 apps that I use separately. Why would I use a combined app? But it's actually become quite useful as a place to go and pick up from where I left off while I'm working on mobile. And the view here is that you'll be able to create videos, 90-second videos from this app. Uh, Phil, does this appeal to you? Do you create videos at all?
A few occasionally, but quite rarely. But I think it's useful if you want to show something that's happening, something very quickly. I think the 90 seconds is a bit short. I think
Mm.
it's less than TikTok. But, Microsoft trying to make you make things a lot quicker. But yeah, no, having that option is always good. I mean, I think for things like this, I actually think the scenarios are things like IT support. Oh,
Mm.
there's something wrong with my computer or my screen. I need to show you what's happening. So you've got an option to do a video as opposed to just straight instead of straight just a photo and sending it or whatever. So you can just
Yeah.
do a quick video of something that happened and then forward it on. I was wondering whether it had all the functionality of the current stream
Mm.
app. It looks kind of similar. I had a look at the Stream mobile app earlier, and basically it has all little annotations and filters and all sorts of different things in there. Um, so it does mention annotations in that message, but it'd be interesting to see if they bring over exactly the same technology. The screenshot doesn't really show it very well.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I expect it. Well, the hope is that the same functionality is brought over, that we're not losing anything. It's just access from a different place. The shift of moving away from Stream as this separate service and bringing those videos into OneDrive and SharePoint. And Stream V2 is about surfacing that as its own app, but bringing those videos and surfacing them from those locations. So the 90-second video is stored in your own OneDrive for Business, and I think it's going to play into, and it doesn't mention it here, but Microsoft Viva Connections has in the company feed a space for news and surfacing that, and there's a whole strategy around that. Messages from your Yammer communities, and then there's video. And I think that we're going to see potentially some of these videos. This is where they may be surfaced, depending on where they've been shared from and how they've been shared to. Um, yeah, the other video editing tool which is built into a Microsoft app is the Yammer one, where you can excuse me, you can create like a few clips, piece them all together, and of course also add some things over the top of it to make it a bit more engaging. So Microsoft's definitely heading towards enabling people to tell stories, but I would wonder, what's the difference between doing that in the Office app and any of the other more capable apps that are available, even freemium type apps you can get off any old store. But that's coming late December, which nowish. starting nowish and complete mid February. So yeah, I'll have a bit of a play with that and share what I find. Um, what do we need to do to prepare? Tell people you can take video from your mobile app. Great. Okay. Next up, what have we got? Not that one. Aha. This is one that we were talking about, Phil, before going live. Changes to the Teams app native permissions on the web browser MC 305426. What's your understanding about this message, Phil? What's happening here?
Well, generally, it's a security thing. It's going to be a little inconvenience for those who use the web version of Teams, but it's when you're using apps inside of a web browser where you're running Teams, and then behind that you've got another application in a tab. The option that they give there as an example there is OneNote, but it could be anything that needs access to your devices.
Mm,
So if it's using your microphone or video to record things, what's been happening is that automatically once you give Teams in your web browser access, it's been giving access to those additional third-party applications behind the scenes. Now, you don't necessarily want to give that permission to those apps. They may be doing something you don't want them to do. So in that case, this makes sense. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal for most people. With most people using the desktop app more than anything else, but it may come up from time to time. So it's certainly something I'd forward on to my support people and my champions just to look out for. That if they need to add permissions to do things for additional apps, that they need to go in and do that.
you bring up a good point that if you've added an app that you use throughout your day to your team's experience and you're accessing it via the web browser, any changes to that app, um, like if it didn't use video or microphone access beforehand, and in the latest version it does, because let's say it's like the Office mobile app, we're now adding the ability to create video from this app within Teams. Um, yeah, I would expect that the new permissions that it requires are actually prompted from within the web browser and from the desktop app. Do you want to give this app permission to access your camera and microphone? Um, yeah, but I think that's probably the loophole is if you had done this in the past with your web browser just sees Teams and that website as the thing to give permissions for accessing microphone and video, whereas we're talking about another layer in, aren't we?
Yep, we're talking that next layer down where Teams is hosting the application.
mm. Yep, so definitely needed. This is rolling out in early February and finish late February. GCC, GCC High, DoD rollouts begin in March and complete by late March. Um, there is a point there too that any of those first party Microsoft apps are considered trusted. You know, you may have an argument against that, but they're considered trusted because they're part of the ecosystem. They're the first party apps. So that includes your
And,
OneNote, EDU.
and
Yeah.
that's all the EDU tenants by the looks of it. It's not the commercial or GCC High, DoDs. It just appears that
Mm,
that
mm.
caveat's just for the education tenants.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. And it's in particular probably why they are showing OneNote as an example, that the OneNote class notebook, and that the feature of being able to let's give a speech or talk your way through an assignment or do some sort of video essay is can be recorded directly into to OneNote, even from within your web browser. Nice. We've got a very brief message, but something that we're kind of looking forward to. And I know you got some commentary on this, Phil. Roaming signatures in Outlook for Windows has been delayed. It's MC 305463. Seems to be a tricky thing to get working correctly. And the whole challenge of getting signatures to be consistent across experiences. What are your thoughts on this, Phil? I mean, I think it's something that we have wanted and needed for some time.
Yeah, I think it's generally because the email in the different email programs, whether it's Outlook or say Gmail or Yahoo or whatever, they all handle email differently. So when you've got signatures that have got just plain text in it, that's fine. When you start getting links and HTML web page type things and images, that's when it gets complicated. And most organizations tend to want to put their logo and their images and links to their social media and things like that in there. And there's different ways in handling it, but there's no one way that necessarily works for everything.
Mm,
um, because there are things like images are blocked, or images that are attached to the email are different, handled differently or blocked and things like that. So getting a consistent experience, and Outlook desktop is one of the worst offenders for it. I know Microsoft are working on that to make it more compliant. So we'll see what comes out of there. I mean, there are third-party tools as well
mm,
that make these signatures as well. So how that would affect them as well is another thing for them to consider.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, I guess it's been coming for years. So what's a few more months? Here's hoping.
They probably
Um,
just hit the problems we just talked about, so that's probably why.
yeah, maybe they're also all suffering blue screens of death 1 minute before they want to launch the feature. I don't know. Just calling it out. Um, um, Another one that seemed to be a bit of a glitch was, and we mentioned this before, I think, on the show, maybe even last week, that there was some update to the Teams app that was preventing people on Android from being able to make calls to emergency services. So this is an important update to remind you that. Oh wow, am I still with you, Phil?
Yep, you're still with me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking at a very funky looking screen as it's doing all sorts of stuff in front of me. Santa, can I have some new hardware? Hey, Ian, good to see you. I'll just pop that up over the screen there. And other various people that have joined us there too, Hilda and Jamie. Thanks for hanging in there on a heck of a show. It's like Die Hard, but it's live hard. Yeah. So this update, yeah, it's a quick one that just make sure that you do update the Teams app on Android to make sure that your ability to call emergency services is not impacted. And what was your advice there, Phil? Coming into the holiday period?
Yep. So basically, if you don't want to get interrupted with Teams messages, sign out anyway. But if you're using Android in the US, make sure you take this update as well to make sure that you've got that. Hopefully, you won't have to call emergency services, but it's good to know that it works when you are actually using it and don't have to waste time, valuable time, trying to get Teams back up and running on your phone to get just to be able to call emergency services. So very important update.
Yep. And I do like you're telling us that we should do this before we go on the holiday break, because we're likely to forget this sort of stuff when we get back. All right. I think finishing off with this one's yeah, interesting. Interesting. We're seeing a growing trend about self-service requests or purchases for licenses, and this is self-service trials for Microsoft Project and Microsoft Visio, MC 306669. This is where you can request a trial. You can start a trial, which then eventually will will prompt you for, hey, your trial's over. Would you like to purchase? And this will then send that message through to the IT procurement team, or if you've got certain permissions or the service is enabled this way, that you'll be able to purchase it yourself. And what have we got? Eligible subscriptions. So once a user's existing business login can sign in and request licenses, they can request licenses for Project Plan 1 and 3 and Visio Plan 1 and 2. Um, this mechanism, Phil, we're seeing come in other different services. I think the first area we saw it was Power BI and Power Apps. Was that right?
Yeah, it was Power Platform stuff.
Power
So
Platform.
basically, so people can get upgrades to their own plans for things that they're developing and for other
Mm,
people. So, yeah.
yeah. So this I don't know, like how would I term it? Consumerization of IT and allowing end users to prompt their admins and global billing admins, hey, I want this, please. This does present its own challenges, and I think we've talked about this as we've talked about it with the other services enabling it. What does the picture look like when someone's put down their company credit card to purchase a few licenses for their business unit, and then they leave the company, and what does that sort of handover process look like in terms of making sure the licenses are still available for people to use? Um, yeah, could be a tricky situation. But what was the other one, Phil? You were talking about how we've got a more functional way of using Visio in the web browser to be able to do basic
Mhm.
edits. But then what happens?
Well, if somebody has Plan 1 and Plan 2 and is using the desktop version or using certain shapes that are not available in the free version,
Mm,
and that an additional user goes in who just has the free version, goes in and opens that particular Visio. If it has shapes and things in it that are only Plan 1 or Plan 2, they'll get a nice big error message which says, "Hey, you can view this, but you can't edit it. You need a license upgrade to edit it."
mm,
So that can prompt people to go out and get additional licensing if they so desire for that particular thing. They can still consume the actual content. They just don't have the
mm.
power to edit it. Only the person who provided it, or another person with a Plan 1 or Plan 2, will be able to edit those things.
Yep. So it's a clever way of creating demand, isn't it? Um, we
Hmm.
actually saw this in other services too with Microsoft and Yammer even before Yammer was part of Microsoft. Was
Mm.
let's get people to sign up and then create that space and that need, and then when that need expands, um, let's have some dollars, please. So yeah, uh,
Yep.
interesting sales
One
tactic.
one thing I did notice there is that it's on the project side, it's Plan 1 and Plan 3.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Plan 5, and that's the big expensive one. So I'm glad
Right.
about that one at least. And managing these, you can see stuff through the billing admin, global admin side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But to switch them off, everything's PowerShell. So yeah, you have to go. Yeah, the admins have to get their PowerShell out and turn off any trials that
Mm.
they particularly do not want people to purchase.
And that I think is going to be a growing list. If we've seen the Power Platform, we're seeing Project and Visio. What other services are going to be available for purchase? Can we see Viva being a self-purchase, service as well? Well, maybe. I mean, some of these things you have to enable in the back end to make it actually work properly. But yeah, who knows what that process will look like? A manager who wants to purchase the manager level of Viva Insights to be able to give
Mhm.
their team some coaching, but the organisation hasn't made that decision. Will we see self-service licensing for Viva as well? Hmm. But yeah, look, that's the messages for this last episode, 2021. We do wish Daniel well. Hopefully he'll heal up. But I'm thankful that Phil was able to come in and fill the gap. You've never heard that one before, have you? No,
Yeah,
no, no,
never.
no. But yeah, look, thank you everyone who tuned in and joined us in the live chat throughout the year. And Phil's usually been there in the chat, plugging away on his keyboard and encouraging people and you know talking through with his various comments as well. So it's really cool to have you on the show live, Phil, and involved in real time without that sort of 20-second delay.
Yeah, no typos.
No, just blue screens. I'm sure it
Yep.
was you. It was your problem, your fault. No, of course not. Of course not. So yeah, thank you everyone. This will be the last show for the year, and we hope to start it up again. Would be January 10th US time, 11th the rest of the other hemisphere. No, hang on, Timesphere. I don't know. As you come around the world, it'll be New Zealand and Australia, 11th of January. But yeah, have a great end of the year. Stay safe,
Yep.
and we hope to see you back as we try and keep up to date with change and keep prepared for that change. And let's see if we can finish the show off properly with a proper outro. This is the intentional blue screen of end of show. Bye, everyone.
Yep. Happy holidays.